So the current debate over AI, artificial intelligence, is about whether the technology will become sentient and autonomous and enslave us all. And of course, that'll probably happen. But in the meantime, we thought it'd be interesting revisiting the original debate about AI, which is about how it affects work. What are the rest of us going to do for a living when machines can do it for us? And there's nobody who's thought more deeply about this and about work in general and its centrality to human dignity than Mike Rowe, and we are, as always, honored to have him in studio. Mike, thank you for coming on.
First of all, you win. The desk?
It's wood.
Are you kidding? I mean, geez, how old is this thing?
I don't know. It's ironwood, and it's funny. The person who got this, I've asked him to go run it down because I'm like the only right winger in the world who loved Julia Butterfly Hill, who lived in a redwood to keep it. I just think trees are really important, and I think being surrounded by wood brings a resonance to your life.
What happened after the hurricane down here? Because I know that was a big deal, and I know you love trees, and I know that couldn't have been great.
Yes, but most of the trees in Florida are fake trees, actually. They're not real. I don't think a palm tree is actually a tree. I mean, a tree is a white pine. A tree is a sequoia. A tree is, all the various hardwoods, oak, beech. Locust, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Cut some locusts this summer. Anyways, sorry.
Chop your own wood. It'll warm you twice.
Yes, that's exactly 3 times. You can just stack it and then split it.
Yeah.
So what the AI, so like 7 years ago, I remember talking to you, I think it was about 7 years ago, about what AI was going to do to working class America, to truck drivers, the most common job for high school educated men. And you had a lot of thoughts about that, but the conversation has progressed so dramatically since then.
Right.
And so is the technology.
Right.
So where are you on thinking about that?
So there was a time when the big conversation, at least in my lane anyway, was really more about robotics and tech, right? The robots are going to come and they're going to displace a lot of blue collar jobs. And how do we stop that? How do we think about that?
Yes.
And I remember you and I talked about the Luddite rebellion.
Yes.
We talked about
endorsing it, actually.
Yes, right. And it's like and the disruption theories and this idea that real replacement is going to happen. It almost never happens, as I understand it. I've seen it in our industry too. There's a lot of talk about, what was going to happen in newspapers when film came along. What was going to happen to film when TV came along?
Yes.
What was going to happen to music and DVDs? And I mean, none of it really goes away, but it all shifts. It's all impacted.
Yes.
So I was struck by the fact that all of a sudden we weren't talking about the impact of robots on blue-collar jobs, but the impact of AI on white-collar jobs.
Right.
That's what interested me.
Which I enjoyed.
Well, I mean...
Sorry, I'm a bad person.
But look, it is super creepy. I mean, I got a link from a buddy who said, hey, man, not for nothing, but I went onto one of these sites and I said, narrate for me in the style of Mike Rowe these 2 paragraphs, right? And he sent me a link to this. And basically, it was 2 paragraphs from an old episode of Deadliest Catch. And I hit play and I listened to me. Now, had I not known it was not me, I would have thought, well, that's something I narrated, 4 or 5 years ago.
Couldn't tell the difference.
Couldn't tell. When I listened for it, I heard some things that made me go, maybe not quite. But that was 2 months ago, which might as well be 2 years ago or 20 years ago. So the speed with which artificial intelligence, something about Moore's Law, something faster,
yes,
faster and faster,
that's right.
and faster. So I part of me wants to say, don't forget the lesson from the Luddites. It's not going to completely upend everything unless it does. And I don't know, because this does feel different.
I don't know. I had a motorcycle once with a crack in the intake manifold that I didn't see, and it made it obviously run lean. And the bike ran so great, faster and faster and faster and faster, until literally the spark plug burned a hole through the piston. I used it as a pen holder on my desk today. But there's something about speed and acceleration that has a natural limit, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, Einstein said, right, you can stand this close to another person and then this close and half it and half it and half it and never, ever stop halving it, which my brain doesn't understand, because it seems like surely you're going to collide and then be on the other side of each other.
Yes.
He's like, no, that doesn't really work.
Or at least have a sexual encounter with the person.
Look, here's how jacked up it is for me. My entire career is actually based on AI. Early on in Dirty Jobs, there was this big conversation at the network when they were like, look, this show it was a nightmare for them because it was rating really, really well, but it was off-brand. Like, Dirty Jobs was not supposed to be the show that people went to Discovery to love.
No.
It was that those were still the days of Attenborough and Jacques Cousteau and Jane Goodall, right?
Yeah.
This was me, a smart aleck looking under rocks, making poop jokes. That's not supposed to be the number one show. So they're like, can you smarten it up a little bit? And I said, well, I've been looking at some science type jobs. And they're like what? And I'm like, well, I'd like to take a deep dive into AI. And they're like, that's great. That's great. If you can find dirty jobs in AI, we're golden. Now, did they think I was talking about artificial insemination? Probably not. Probably not.
Did you do that episode?
4 days later, I was at the Circle X Ranch, somewhere outside of Houston, with my arm up to my shoulder inside a couple of dozen cows, taking instructions from a cowboy named Steve, who was walking me through the process of artificially inseminating the cows. I also had a remarkable encounter with a bull called Hunsucker Commando, and the process whereby the sperm is extracted from this minotaur, right, and then put back into these unsuspecting bovines, giving us, it's basically a Brahman bull and an Angus cow. It gives you Brangus meat. The point is,
Wait, did you, without getting specific, did you go through that entire process? Extraction, as we say?
oh, extraction. Oh, yeah. No, I gathered. I had a styrofoam cup. There were probes. There was insertion into the bull. Light current stimulated the prostate. The white gold flew through the air. I captured as much of it as I could, and I put the whole thing on the air a week later. And I got called to the principal's office.
You did.
The question was, you promised us a show on artificial intelligence. And I said, did I? And then we had this big conversation about science. And the moral of the story is, there's more science in artificial insemination than there is in AI, or at least as much, and in a much deeper, much more meaningful way. We are so disconnected from our food. We're disconnected from our energy. And Dirty Jobs on the surface was just a romp. It was exploding toilets and misadventures in artificial or animal husbandry or whatever it was. But in reality, it was a pretty thoughtful look at what keeps us connected and what we've become disconnected from. And so ultimately, the show stayed on the air, and that episode aired to ridiculous ratings, by the way, which is why I violated every other barnyard creature known to man. Ratings gold. But the thing is, there's no McDonald's, there's no Carl's Jr., there's no fast food, there's no slow food, there's no meat industry as we understand it without the other AI.
Yes.
So that's kind of a long way of saying I'm most interested to see how artificial intelligence and artificial insemination are going to somehow hopefully come together.
But so how does, no, that's such a smart point. How does this quantum increase in computing power, which is really what artificial intelligence, just faster computation, how does that affect the real economy? Like the actual physical stuff that keeps us alive?
Well, I don't know, but I do think that what's going on in the real economy and what's going on in the real country is this unraveling of connectivity. People, and I put myself in this group, we've become really disconnected from some very primary things.
Yes.
I commented on your desk right away. It's primal. It's fundamental.
That's why I love it.
It looks like what it is.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I don't know, it's to reconnect with basic things is to be around fundamental things. I like what you've done with the place.
Oh, I like to sniff it. You know, I do.
If you're going to sell T-shirts, do me a favor and put that on it.
The thing I don't like about the digital experience is it doesn't smell like anything because it's not real.
It smells like ennui.
Yeah, it smells like ennui and self-hatred. Yeah, you're right.
But anyway, so helping to be reconnected to where our food comes from, to where our energy comes from, to what our history is, and to do it with humor. That was the goal of that show. Today, not to sound too high-minded, but it's one of the goals of my foundation. And you know, I don't really have permission to talk about AI. That's not really my lane. I don't really quite know what I'm doing. But on a personal level, when somebody sends you a link that sounds so much like you can't tell the difference, then you start to connect to it because it gets personal. So I think what's going to happen is this stuff is going to stop being ephemeral, theoretical, and people are going to find real personal stuff with regard to AI. I think, look,
when you go on Twitter and there's a video of you praising Hitler, it's not really you.
Deep fakes.
Oh, man, come on, that's gonna happen, right?
That's gonna happen, and porn. Porn is on the leading edge of every new tech all the time. And what does that mean?
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. The internet is crowded with interesting things that don't really matter. On TCN, we attempt to bring you interesting things that actually do matter, and a lot of them. Interviews, long form and short, videos, documentaries. You can find all of it on tuckercarlson.com, and we hope you will.